And am I live? Can I see, or will it go?
Let's see. We are live, ladies and gentlemen.
Huddle, 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 save, 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 build it, build it, build it. Sound money. All right, guys. It's the ugly old goat. And today we are honored to have Neil Woodfine. And he's coming from Asia today. And he's going to talk to us about Liquid, something I've always been interested in. It's interested me far more than what's the other one? At any rate, it's always interested me because it kind of reminds me of an exchange, a membership exchange, kind of like the commodity futures market. So it's always interested me as something that I think has real potential. So Neil, you want to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about Liquid. Tell us exactly what it is and who can use it and why should we use it?
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show. So my name's Neil. I've been around the Bitcoin space for quite a while now. Since 2014, I started at OKCoin when the exchange was probably the biggest futures market at the time globally. And then left to start my own Bitcoin company called Reimagined, which was doing cross-border payments. And then joined Wire. And now I'm working at Blockstream, where I spend most of my time working on and around Liquid and various Liquid-related products. There's a very brief intro to Liquid. It's primarily a Bitcoin sidechain, and what that means is that you can transfer assets from the Bitcoin main chain over to Liquid and then back to the Bitcoin main chain. And I'll talk a bit more about the mechanics of that later. I'm not an engineer, to be clear. I'm just a business marketing type. So I can't go into too much detail on the technicals, but I'll do my best where I can. What that does, so the reason that you would want to transfer Bitcoin to another network is that Bitcoin is amazing for security. So for anybody that wants to hodl and like protect their wealth and gain a store of value, and perhaps for various other applications, Bitcoin is great. Like, we definitely need that. But for certain different types of users that have niche requirements, like there are trade-offs when using the Bitcoin main chain, and that comes in the form of, so like, let's say you're a trader. If you're trying to move your transactions around various different exchanges and wallets, the transaction speeds on Bitcoin are quite slow. So the security you achieve on Bitcoin is cumulative, and it takes a long time to get a few confirmations through. Like, if you want to get one confirmation, sometimes a confirmation can take an hour, even longer, if there's if the luck is bad for the miners. So that's one of the kind of trade-offs when people are using the Bitcoin main chain. And then another one is that everything is completely public. So if you're an exchange or you're a trader, every time that you make a large transfer on the Bitcoin network, everybody can see what you're doing. And if people are moving lots of transactions to an exchange or off an exchange, like, that information is public, and there are other traders who can trade against that information, which is a bit of a problem. So the reason you would want to move Bitcoin from the main chain to a side chain is because Liquid is designed for these trading applications and solves a bunch of those problems and that comes hand in hand with a few security trade-offs. So, like, for example, if you're a hodler, you definitely want to be using the Bitcoin main chain, but if you're a trader, there's a lot of reasons why you would want to be using Liquid. And the way that Liquid does that is that once your Bitcoin is on Liquid, you can complete a transaction, a full settlement, within 2 minutes. So each block is 1 minute long, and you only need 2 confirmations for a full settlement. It's not like cumulative security through proof of work like it is on Bitcoin. And then another benefit is that it uses some pretty nifty cryptographic technology that comes from the Blockstream team called confidential transactions. And what confidential transactions does is it hides a lot of the transaction information on the sidechain. So the sidechain looks just like Bitcoin. if you're looking through a block explorer. But the key difference is that you can't see the amounts that are being transacted. You can just see this address is transferring to this address. And then also you can't see what assets are within that transaction. And so that comes onto like the other main benefit of Liquid is that it's not just for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is definitely special on the network because you can verifiably prove that there is a one-to-one backing of Bitcoin on the main chain for every Bitcoin on the Liquid sidechain. You can prove that there's Bitcoin locked up on Bitcoin. But in addition to that, you can also issue new assets on Liquid. So right now we've got things like Tether USD, another stablecoin called GPYS from the Japanese Settlenet team. They're using that for an OTC platform. You've got Bull Bitcoin's LCAD. It's not a stable coin, but it operates a little bit like one. You've got the Bitsy exchange token. And then we also have a few other security tokens on the way. And these tokens all operate exactly the same as Bitcoin on the network. So they look the same. The security model is slightly different. Like I said, with Bitcoin, you can verifiably prove there's that one-to-one relationship. With any assets issued on Liquid, you're trusting the issuer that they have whatever collateral is supposed to be there for the asset that you're using. But aside from that, like you can use all of the same features on Liquid. You can do atomic swaps between the assets. So you can do like trustless exchange. You can use multi-sig, you can use time locks like you can on Bitcoin, and you're getting the same fast transactions. So like settlement within 2 minutes and everything is confidential. So like for example, there's that Twitter account, Whale Calls, and you can see very large Bitcoin and Tether transactions going to and from exchanges. If people start using Liquid more, that will become a thing of the past. Like people will not be able to trade against that information. Larger traders will be able to hide that.
Okay, as a trader, what would be my requirements to start using Liquid?
So to start using it, it's pretty simple. You would first you'd need to get a Liquid wallet. There are 3 options for that right now. The best one, if you just like want to start testing, is probably Aqua, which we just launched a couple of weeks ago, which is just a really simple single sig wallet. It supports all of Liquid assets, so Liquid Bitcoin and Tether and all of that. If you're looking for a bit more kind of security and like hardware wallet support and a few other features, then you probably want to use Blockstream Green. And then if you're a business and you're like wanting to do some kind of algorithmic trading or something, you want to use Elements Core, which is kind of like Liquid's version of Bitcoin Core. And that would allow you, it's basically a full node, so you can interact a bit more.
I have a question about this. So part of the structure is that there's a federation, as far as I understand, of exchanges that are kind of members of this federation, right? There's a big multi-sig. There's a variety of a few other technical aspects to it, but the multi-sig is just a number of private keys held by exchanges to join to create this pool of liquidity. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I mean, getting into how like all of this is achieved. So instead of like with the Bitcoin network, you have full nodes and miners which are operating the network. Instead, with Liquid, what you've got is the federation, which is 54 cryptocurrency companies. I think it's 54, 55 now. And 15 of them are operating something called liquid functionaries. These 15 liquid functionaries are kind of like the beating heart of the network. So they perform 2 roles. One is that they operate multi-sig. So when you transfer Bitcoin to the network, you're essentially sending the Bitcoin to an 11 of 15 multi-sig. And each one of those keys is secured on an HSM device on the functionary. And every time that somebody wants to do a peg out, so transfer Bitcoin from Liquid back to the Bitcoin main chain, it requires 11 of those 15 signatures to send those Bitcoin to the trader's address.
So I guess my question is, if I do this, am I actually trading under one of the Federation members, or it sounds like it's I have to have the approval of the Confederation? That's what I'm really not clear of. In other words, I understand how exchanges work, where you buy a membership and then you're a clearing member or you're not a clearing member. I mean, so you can use, that's one thing that's confusing. In other words, you can use the Liquid network and not be a part of the Confederation. Is that correct?
So there's a few questions to unpack there. As a trader, all you need is a Liquid wallet, and then you can send and receive assets, and you don't need any permission to do that from the exchanges. Also, the exchanges themselves, and the Liquid Federation, they can't see what transactions you're making. The confidential transaction protects, it prevents anybody from seeing how much you're transacting and what assets you're transacting. So that's that side of things covered. The other, if you're an exchange or a business that wants to start offering Liquid as a deposit and withdrawal method, you also don't need to be part of the federation. You can basically just fire up an Elements core node, and you can use that to receive transactions and send transactions back. The only reason that you would need to join the federation and become add to that list of 54 companies is if you want to start doing peg outs. So if you want to transfer Bitcoin from the sidechain back to the Bitcoin main chain, you need to be a member. And so as a trader, you can peg in yourself. You probably wouldn't do that. There's a lot of good services for handling peg-ins for you in a more convenient way. But if you want to do the peg out, you're going to have to go to a third-party company to handle that peg out. However, if you prefer not to do that, as a trader, there are other options. So you can find P2P markets where people are willing to trade Liquid Bitcoin for Bitcoin at an exchange rate. And there's a number of different options for that. For example, SideShift, Liquidity, and they'll take a very small fee. We're talking 1% or less for completing that kind of transaction. But the idea is that as a trader, there isn't, if you're leaving a bunch of Bitcoin or Tether or whatever on exchanges, there's not much point in handling those peg outs on the reg. You're probably going to leave a bunch of your assets in Liquid, because it allows them to be transferred around exchanges and back to your own wallet in very, very quickly, in 2 minutes. So you would only have to do that peg out on a very kind of irregular basis. But okay. To be clear, any exchange can offer Liquid services, deposits and withdrawals, and any trader can get involved. They don't need permission from the federation.
Not all exchanges. Sorry to interrupt. Not all exchanges accept Liquid deposits yet, right? I mean, we've been using BitMEX, and I don't think I've seen BitMEX allow Liquid. I believe Bitso supports Liquid deposits, so that's cool.
Well, I think BitMEX is a member, so they just are not advertising it, and that was going to be my next question, because of the legal problems that we now have with BitMEX, which I really consider the opening salvo in the war against Bitcoin, which I'll be writing an article on. I was wondering how that stands. I mean, my understanding is they are a member, and you probably wouldn't know this. Are they getting subpoenaed, and what do we do in this case? I mean, this is a big issue that's coming up with BitMEX, because they've committed no crime, and they've got a criminal indictment against them. And it's not like John McAfee or the Bitcoin Club or any of this other stuff. And these guys have basically, been charged criminally for trying to avoid being a policeman for the United States government. And so that's probably beyond your scope and beyond your pay grade here. We're getting this really tough stuff, but I mean, I really like Liquid. I like the concept from the beginning, because I get it. I didn't really understand until you explained it, that it's a confederation, and yet the trading is not. It's kind of backed by the confederation as a whole, and you're not trading through one of the members of the confederation, which is a different structure from anything I've seen before, which doesn't surprise me in Bitcoin. So this is really cool stuff, guys. I don't know where we're going with it, but that's why we wanted to get Neil on, because we got to go to the next level. And
yeah.
And this is it. I mean, the other one is Lightning is the other one, and to me, Lightning This has far more interest in me than Lightning does, simply because I'm a active trader, a successful trader, and I get it. And there's a lot, in particular, if you're doing arbitrage, you want to be able to send funds worldwide without the slippage and quickly. So I think it's really exciting, but boy, there's a lot going on here that needs to be addressed, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, and none of us are experts on the legality of this sort of BitMEX situation, but I think we can definitely talk about it. And I'm very curious what you're seeing from your side, being inside Blockstream and being so close to. I mean, I'm assuming you have a certain amount of information about what's going on in Liquid. Yeah, what is this BitMEX situation like for you guys? What's going on your end?
So we're obviously keeping an eye on it. I think you're correct in the assessment that it's probably an opening salvo. There's possibly worse to come. We just have to keep an eye on it. It's important to point out that the Liquid network is not owned by Blockstream. We produce a lot of critical technology for it, but essentially it's ran by the members. So in the early stages, certainly, like to bootstrap the thing, Blockstream had to kind of have a big hand in how things developed. But now,
well, my initial question is, right now with the criminal indictment, there's going to be subpoenas issued, and how is that? How is Liquid? How is it organized? I mean, it has to be a legal entity somewhere, and how and yet, if you get a subpoena or a confiscation order, are the funds somehow protected against this?
So,
this is going to be the challenge of what lies ahead. We're really protecting ourselves against governments and central bankers. I mean, that's the bottom line. They're gonna try and shut us down. That's just the way. That's the game, fellas. And we have to, And there's got people a lot smarter than me that understand the situation. And I think we've got one of the best players in the world that is the point of the sword, and that's Arthur Hayes and BitMEX, because they know what they're doing, and fortunately they only were able to arrest one of them. so hopefully we'll be able to fight this thing with the proper ammunition and support. So
yeah, I think BitMEX, like, if there's anybody that's going to come out of this swinging, it's Arthur, and I'm a big fan of the team there, the stand-up guys. Yeah, I think like there's not a sad ending to that story yet. Like, that could end up being a positive for the industry. But basically, the members of the Liquid network will be monitoring that situation and making adjustments as necessary. It's kind of out of Blockstream's hands.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was trying to understand the structure, because I understand, like, but my understanding is they are a clearing member, and so how is that going to affect the liquidity organization itself? And what is what jurisdiction? I mean, we haven't been able to create a Bitcoin jurisdiction yet that transcends all governments. I don't know if we ever will. But
maybe we have. I mean, I think the question to that is open. I think the question to how much jurisdiction do these governments really have is going to have to be settled by the courts. So what I'm hearing from Neil is that Blockstream does not have control over the network. It's a distributed federation, and the subpoena will have to go to the multiple members of the network, I presume.
Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, like, you guys are fairly familiar with the Blockstream team. They think from a kind of like security mindset. They're very, very keen on that kind of thing. There's a lot of like Bitcoin developers that work there, and we've been careful to make sure that we seeded the Liquid network with companies that are based all around the world. So there's multiple different jurisdictions. Like, every continent is covered by the Liquid network. So if we do see certain jurisdictions becoming extremely hostile towards Bitcoin, like, there is structures within the Liquid network to remove members, to add new members. Like, there is ways that the Liquid network can adapt to those kind of situations. So it's not. It's designed to make sure that it can work in kind of multiple different
scenarios, environments.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I mean, what does it cost? For example, if I wanted to become a member, what is the cost to become a member of the Confederation directly? What? Let's start there and then work our way down.
And what are the benefits?
Yeah. Well, I think yeah, and explain the benefits and what are the costs to become a Confederation member, and then what are the different levels of usage? Down to I don't know, is it suitable for the small trader? Are we just talking about large traders and or mid-sized traders? And it's a different beast from Lightning, guys. That's the way I see it. A completely different beast. It's really more of a banker's bank clearinghouse situation. But I really want to hear from Neil, because that's just my guess. I really don't know the ins and outs. I understand it a lot better since you've explained it to us, but can you maybe start from the top down? How do you become a member of the Confederation? What are its costs, and what are the responsibilities and the liabilities? And then if I use the network, where do I fit in there?
Okay, so it's important to point out that you don't need to be a member to use the network. Like, anybody can start engaging with the network as a non-member. If you do want to become a member of the Federation, you need to have an incorporated company first. Like, you absolutely have to be incorporated somewhere. Like, you would have to submit an application to one of to the membership board. So we have a 5-person membership board at the on the Liquid Federation, and they will assess your application and decide, like, they'll make sure that you're not like a hostile actor, and then like probably you'll be accepted.
Where is this membership board incorporated? Is that a corporate structure?
It's not incorporated. It's just five of the members. So basically, there's an election every 2 years, and then the federation elects the people that stand on the boards, and each one of the cryptocurrency companies submits a representative to each of the boards. There's 3 boards. There's the membership board, the oversight board, and the technology board, and they basically make the decisions that push the network forward.
And what is the Confederation requirement? Like, I'm sure you have to make an initial deposit, like is it 100 Bitcoin, 5? What are you requiring right now?
So it's important to highlight that there's 2 different types of member. You've got the regular members. So like, that's just any company that's joined the network. They can perform peg outs once they're added to the peg out whitelist. And they don't have any, at the moment, there's no fees to be just a regular member. If you're running
a corporation to be a regular member, you have to be a corporation to be a regular member also.
Yes, you have to have an incorporated company to be a
but that's not a user. That's different than a user. So you can have Liquid on your wallet, like Bitcoin, like a green wallet. I can set you up, no problem with that. But then there's 2 other memberships within the federation, right?
Yeah, I think it's probably best to break down at this point. Best to break down the 4 types of user. So starting from the bottom, you've got just your regular users, your traders. They're just going to run a light wallet. And so they'll be using Aqua or Blockstream Green, and they're relying on an SPV wallet, which is connected to somebody else's node. Then the next level up of user, you've got the Liquid nodes. And the Liquid nodes are essentially like a Bitcoin full node. And what they allow the user to do is to perform a peg in. You can issue new assets. You can do various other kind of like high level stuff. You need to be a corporate entity at that level. No. Are you? So okay. These 2 levels, anybody can interact with the Liquid network. Anybody can issue an asset. Anybody can peg in Bitcoin, and you just need to run a Liquid full node. And this is the permissionless layer. And then the top 2 levels, you've got just regular members, and then you've got functionary members. And the functionary members are the people that operate those the specialized hardware, which has an HSM and a server, and they're the things that generate the blocks and secure the multi-sig. And to become a member, you have to apply to the membership board. Right now, we've maxed out with functionaries. So there's 15 functionaries. That is like a technical limit due to Bitcoin multi-sig. We have some updates on the way called DynaFed, which will allow us to increase that number, but right now we're stuck at 15. So you can't become a functionary member right now unless one of those leaves. But to become a regular member, you just submit an application to the membership board, and they'll assess that and approve you, and then you're in. And once you're onboarded, like there aren't any fees for being a member right now.
So the benefit is better fees, lower fees?
So the benefits of being a member, one is that you can complete peg outs. So you get added to something called the pack list, which is a whitelist of addresses, which allows you to send Bitcoin locked in the Liquid network out to the Bitcoin sidechain. So once you've got that ability, you can start offering that to your users, and you can decide whether you want to charge for that or offer it for free. So that's like kind of a potential revenue stream, or just like a convenience for your users. And the other reason that you would want to join the network is to just contribute to the governance. So like those 54 members are voting every couple of years, and they're choosing like who's going on the boards. They're making their voice heard and like deciding like which updates get applied to the network, like what kind of businesses they want to start attracting to the network, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you have any other questions, Ugly? I gotta change the battery on my camera, so I'll bring video back in a second. But
no, I'm got a lot better understanding in the last 15 minutes than I had 15 minutes ago. So I did not really understand completely. I got it, and I still don't understand the ins and outs of being a member or a member of the Confederation. But I think for most of our listeners, they'll be users and might be interested in users, particularly if you're going from exchange to exchange, because if you've ever had the market working against you quickly, and you don't want to get wrecked, and you want to add a little bit. Sometimes your Bitcoin doesn't make it in time, and you get wrecked. So that's going to really create a lot better liquidity in all of the markets. This is nothing but a major improvement.
Yeah, that's a huge benefit.
Bitcoin liquidity, and that's is what we're going to need. It was Preston Fish who I would listen to him. He was on a Bitcoin halving group with Breedlove and a couple others, and I think he nailed it, that the real problems that's coming in the next big crisis is going to be the liquidity squeeze. Now, how are people going to get out of the system fast enough? And it's going to be very, very difficult. And this is one of the solutions that's going to make it a lot easier. And that's really one of the things that we're going to have to solve, guys. None of us, you don't want to see the world financial system collapse. It's not going to be pretty for anyone. And so we are responsible as Bitcoiners to, but we believe in sound money, and that we have sound money, is that we have to be able to overcome these obstacles. They're very real obstacles, and they're very powerful obstacles. And I really take my hat off to you guys at Liquid, because I really see this. I see this as almost like being creating a commodity exchange. I think that's where, and my view of banking, and because what this is it's a way of. These are all reputable companies. First of all, they are. If you're in the Confederation, you are basically a trusted third party, but that doesn't mean there's still, large companies that go broke, and that happens in the Bitcoin community too. So we trust and we verify. And the thing that makes this Confederation strong is if you have one failure, it's not going to affect the whole network. It's going to be the Confederation that picks up the difference. And that is one of the things, one of the innovations that happened with the development of the futures markets. And that the retail customer, when there's, not always, but generally when there's a problem in the exchange, the retail customer does not get hurt. It's the membership of the exchanges that have to bail out the failing company. And that's what I see as that what's happened here is you've got an off-chain solution that's going to speed up processing and reduce risk. And it's some of the large players that are providing that service to the rest of us. And so I take my hat off to for this effort, whoever's behind it. I know that I know Adam Back's been promoting it a lot, and I know that he's probably one of those minds behind it. So you know, I'm excited about it. I really am, and I'm going to get on and start using it myself. But I kind of have to. Oh, I was going to ask you right now: are there any legal jurisdictions? Do you have to just? Are you taking accounts from all over the world, or just certain countries? You know, are you United States citizens allowed to participate, or what restrictions do you have as far as retail users?
So that would totally depend on the individual members and what services that they're offering based on Liquid. But Liquid is just basically software, the same as Bitcoin. Like anybody, anywhere can fire up a node in the same way that they can fire up a Bitcoin node or whatever other cryptocurrency that they're looking at. So it's not limited based on jurisdiction.
That's really interesting. So that's probably why BitMEX hasn't allowed. It might be. I mean, I have no idea, but like it may be why BitMEX has not allowed liquid deposits to retail customers, because it would be trivial for an American to turn some Bitcoin into liquid and then deposit into BitMEX. No.
No, it's exactly the same situation as Bitcoin. So like they accept Bitcoin and provide Bitcoin withdrawals. Like if they were using Liquid, it would look and work very, very similar.
Right, they can still ask them for KYC information. They can still geo-block them by IP, I guess, or flag them and so on. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I have a few more questions. I think. So one of them is that, and this is I guess a controversy that was sort of, it's not a huge controversy in my mind, but it kind of did some rounds on Twitter, which was around, I guess, the failure of consensus in some sort of bug in the federation that led to it being sort of defaulting to kind of like an emergency setup. And I was hoping you could explain to us what that emergency setup is and what that procedure is, more or less, for people to know.
Yep, no problem. So when somebody pegs in Bitcoin to the Liquid network, that goes to an 11 of 15 multi-sig. And the risk there is that for whatever reason, like a comet hits the Earth and like 5 of those exchanges go completely offline or unoperational. That means that the Bitcoin on the Liquid network could get locked up forever. So like obviously you wouldn't want that to happen. And the way that the Liquid network is being designed is that it uses time locks. So in addition to the multi-sig, everything is time locked. And after a certain period of time, the keys will default to a 2 of 3 multi-sig, and they're known as the emergency keys. And the emergency keys are currently held by Blockstream. They're on super deep cold storage. And typically the UTXOs on the Liquid network never expire. So like those emergency keys are very rarely live. Technically, they should never be live, but unfortunately, there was a bug in the Liquid network that, like you said, people became aware of it earlier this year. Essentially, what had happened was each one of the functionaries has 2 devices. One is the HSM and one is the server unit. And both of them are applying certain rules and making certain activities to keep the Liquid network operational. And there was a mismatch between the code used for the time lock on the HSM and the server. And the server is quite relatively easy for us to update the software on and change. The HSM, obviously, because it's storing private keys, is extremely difficult for us to change. And once we became aware of the bug, like we had the whole Corona lockdowns and travel restrictions going on, so it became very difficult for us to update those HSMs. And essentially what was happening was, so when you peg in Bitcoin, there's a 28-day time lock. So after 28 days, if there's no activity on the network, those keys will revert to the emergency keys, and they're refreshed every 14 days. But unfortunately, what the system was doing, it was refreshing them to 14 days instead of 28 days. And what that meant was that, like, once it got to the end of those 14 days, that after being refreshed the first time, there was some UTXOs expiring for a very short period of time. We're talking like an hour, 2 hours. And it was only a portion of the funds held on the network. And those funds were still extremely safe. They were still protected by at that point, they were spendable either by the Federation or the emergency keys, and the emergency keys are on deep cold storage. So they were still super secure, but like that's not the model that people are buying into. That's not like how the Liquid network should work. We've been delaying to apply a more fundamental update to the HSMs called Dynafed. But given all of the attention it was getting, it became a larger security risk. So we deployed a kind of temporary fix, which basically refreshes the UTXOs earlier, so that like now there's a 7-day window. If the network goes down for 7 days, then the UTXOs will start to become spendable by the emergency keys. But that's only in a failure mode of the network for 7 days. That gives people time to kind of like adjust things. So it's resolved now temporarily, and then we'll be launching Dynafed hopefully early next year. And that will, fix that problem like at a fundamental level. It'll give us full 14 days. And in addition to that, it will allow us to have more people in the multi-sig, and allow the Federation to also change how those emergency keys work, and like who holds them and that kind of
Gotcha. Okay, so I mean that was a very technical answer. I just want to recap it a little bit before we move on.
Yeah.
So my understanding of what you just said is that so there's the Federation, the funds that are locked in the Federation, they have an extra variable, which is they're locked for a certain amount of time, and then there's a sort of an extra transaction that's sort of signed essentially that can be spent after that time period, right? And that's the transaction that's sort of, that would move the funds to the 2 of 3 sort of emergency backup wallet, right? So those funds can be spent after the time lock expires, but then the bug was messing with how often the setup is refreshed. So before it was every 14 days, the setup would be refreshed, and so the time would get delayed another 14 days. But I guess that's where sort of the bug was. And is that correct?
So basically, like every 14 days, for every peg-in that's gone into the network, if it hasn't moved, what the network does automatically is it just respends the transaction back to the network, and that refreshes the time lock.
Let me take this to human speak, okay? Because you guys have done a great job, okay? Yeah. But most of us have no idea what you're talking about. And let me explain very simply. I regularly drive, Juan knows, I regularly drive a car, and there's this sound that goes off all the time. It's gone on for years, and I'd never learned, I got to put on my seatbelt. So, every time that you put in security, it's an inconvenience. It's a pain in the ass, and it gets in the way of doing business and doing things. And as entrepreneurs, that's the last thing we want to be dealing with. And I always say my wife has all this security. And so far I said, well, the only security, the only thing the security works against is me, because I can't get anything done. I can't get into my own house. The dog bit me. Where's the burglar that it bit? But it's really important. This is really important. If you ever had, because I've lost funds, substantial funds off of exchanges. If you've lost keys, if you've lost computers, this is security is a big deal. And so I just wanted to illustrate this, because we do have for the 99.9% of us, we are going to have to trust others to deal with the security issues. And this is another thing that makes Bitcoin so unique. And that's why it's the only thing that has the possibility of emerging as a standard, because it is basically, that's the design. That's what it's all about. That's what's going on here. This is what Neil is explaining. And this is what, Juan is trying to put together and to give to us on a level that we can understand. Yet, you know what? Most of us don't get it. So we have it has to be brought to us in, it's like teaching your grandma or your mother how to use a cell phone, or, me, I have a hard time as I get older using a cell phone because it's so small. But this is what, you know, you guys are doing. And I think this is why I want to promote you and encourage you, because this is the track that Bitcoin has to go on. Bitcoin is going to make it, Bitcoin is Bitcoin, but the ease of use is going to happen off chain. It has to. That's the same way that the gold standard developed. Gold was the standard, but all of the uses of the Bitcoin standard, actually, it developed off chain. And so this is the first major step that I see of you know, off-chain innovation, and that's where the future is, you know, for the next several generations, you know, to come.
To add to that point, the way gold developed was that things went off chain, and people started pushing around paper and then numbers on databases. The problem with that is that it's not verifiable, so it was very difficult for the buyer of a receipt to verify that, like, there is a one-to-one backing of whatever they're buying. They can't check the collateral. But the way Liquid is built, it's designed with like Blockstream's mantra in mind, like don't trust, verify. At any point, you can verify that any liquid on the network is backed one-to-one by Bitcoin in the Federation wallet. So like you can run a liquid full node and verify that that is indeed the case. So like you can't like run inflation or double spending or anything on liquid. Like it provides a higher level of security to typical off-chain solutions. So like a lot of traders now, I think, and exchanges are looking at full custodial solutions for moving Bitcoin around exchanges. And they obviously come with a lot of risks. Like you can't prove that those Bitcoins or whatever kind of Bitcoin receipts you're using are backed. Yeah, and like there's obviously custody risks there. Liquid is built in a kind of more distributed, trust minimized, and verifiable way.
Would it be fair to say, Anil, I look at the current exchanges as being essentially Bitcoin banks, but they're very bad banks. And maybe my view is that Liquid is the first viable bank I've seen in Bitcoin. Is that a decent analysis? And I'm not, hey, I have nothing to do with Liquid yet, but when I first saw it, I said, I'm like, yeah.
I 100% would not describe Liquid as a bank, both like from a mechanical perspective and also from a legal perspective.
Well, I'm not saying from a legal or I understand.
Yeah, no, it's like, no, it's very different because you have like this kind of distributed multi-sig model. It's like nobody has full custody over the funds, and everything's distributed around people. So I think creating real world analogies is pretty difficult with this because it's brand new, and multi-sig is a brand new concept to custody, to ownership. Yeah, I wouldn't describe it as a. I think
how's the customer service? Do you guys have like a customer service team to help onboard members?
It's been discussed that the Liquid Federation should possibly set up something like that. At the moment, the number of inquiries that we get is fairly low, and for the most part, like we have like a Liquid Telegram group, which I can share with you guys, and you can add to the show notes. Like we answer problems in there quite regularly, so that's easy to handle.
Interesting.
Like
Looking forward to it.
Just going back to the bank issue, like one of the risks that a lot of traders take is by leaving their funds on exchanges, and then the exchange can disappear overnight, and people can lose a lot of their funds. With Liquid, things don't change like immediately as soon as you start using Liquid. So if you're storing your Liquid Bitcoin on an exchange, and the exchange goes down, you still lost those funds, right? It's the same as using Bitcoin or any other asset. But what Liquid does allow you to do, because it has such fast deposits and withdrawals, the reason traders leave funds on exchanges is because it's convenient and they don't want to miss out on trading opportunities. They need to be able to trade fast when that opportunity presents itself. But with Liquid, what people can do is actually withdraw the funds and hold their own keys on their own private wallet. And then when an opportunity presents itself, you can transfer to the exchange within 2 minutes and immediately start trading. So they don't have to worry about these like uncertain confirmation times that can happen in Bitcoin and other assets. which is a big bonus for the security of traders. Also, like typically traders have to leave pools of funds on multiple different exchanges. What this allows them to do is actually achieve more with less. So you can have like a bunch of Bitcoin on your own personal wallet, and then when the opportunity presents itself on whichever exchange, you can get the funds there fast and start trading.
So what I've seen no exchange, and maybe I'm wrong, but I only trade on a few. I see no exchange that at least they advertise liquidity. So once you get in this liquid network, are the exchanges there, and then you just, in other words, it's not average because you're now part of this separate network. So it's really not a part of any other deposit.
Bitso, I'm told Bitso lets you deposit liquid as a civilian if you have access to Bitso as an exchange, which not everybody has, right? But
Okay.
I haven't seen that many either yet.
The implementations at different exchanges are different, and that is kind of their own prerogative. Basically, different jurisdictions will have different requirements for how like liquid Bitcoin and Bitcoin are handled. But we have multiple exchanges with it available right now. So you've got Bitfinex, which is obviously the big one. You've got Bitsy. You've got the Rock Trading. There's a whole bunch of other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head. Go check it out on the Blockstream Help Center. We've got a really complete list of exchanges that are supporting Liquid right now. But there's enough to start creating some loops. So BTC Turk just added it recently as well. There's like two different ways of handling it. One is that when a trader deposits liquid Bitcoin to the exchange through the liquid Bitcoin deposit option, immediately their account is credited with Bitcoin. So they just treated one-to-one, and the trader doesn't have to worry about like moving between liquid and Bitcoin. And then when they do the withdrawal, they have an option to do Bitcoin withdrawal or liquid Bitcoin withdrawal. And again, it's treated one-to-one. The way some other exchanges are handling it is so this is for Bitfinex, for example. You deposit your liquid Bitcoin, and then you have a liquid Bitcoin balance. And then within the Bitfinex conversion menu, you can convert your liquid Bitcoin to Bitcoin one-to-one. Like you actually manually have to do that. And then you can start trading your Bitcoin. And then again, when you want to do your withdrawal, you do a conversion from Bitcoin to liquid Bitcoin, and then withdraw your liquid Bitcoin. So there's two kind of slightly different. They both achieve the same thing, but
see that
slightly different.
Wow, well, yeah. I really take my hat off to you because I think this is the future, guys, and I think this is the first major step. It's much more exciting to me than the Lightning Network, and maybe I don't get Lightning yet, but this to me. And Lightning, I think, has its purpose, but I think this has a much wider purpose, and it's really going to add a liquidity that we don't have it now, but this is going to open the gate for a huge liquidity solution in Bitcoin.
Like to add that, I think we keep on bringing up Lightning. Lightning is awesome, but I think for traders, it's difficult to use. It's not suited for very large transactions, which traders deal with. It's more for retail transactions. You've got to manage your channel balances. It's hell for exchanges as much as it is for traders. So I think we're going to see Lightning struggle to take off in the trading arena, and probably it will get overtaken by solutions like Liquid, and then also custodial solutions where people are using.
Well, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm a big student of Tone Vays and Jimmy Song, and basically Jimmy Song has always taught me, you know what, if it can be done easier on a centralized ledger, that's where it belongs. The only thing that needs to be decentralized is Bitcoin. What Liquid is doing, because you're off-chain, but using Bitcoin as the standard and actually using Bitcoin. That is the unique feature of this thing. And that is why, there's security. It's a separate security. It's off-chain, but it's a I don't know. Like I say, the closest thing I can make an analogy to it, it just looks like the reemergence of confederations that banks made with the gold standard. That's exactly what they did, and how commodities traders built exchanges to trade commodities. And this is what Liquid now has done: is you build an exchange that's off chain, that's just more efficient, that is basically we say refereed and by large people in the Bitcoin industry that have an interest in Bitcoin, and I think that's what needs to be done. I think, man, I see Liquid as being a huge innovation, probably the biggest innovation I've seen since Bitcoin itself, and because I think it's the first viable off-chain solution that I think has an almost unlimited potential. So I really appreciate you coming on, Neil, and
Thanks.
explain.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
I'm going to be looking more and more into it. It's fascinating because it is new. It's complete. It's the same, but it's different. It's got the new technology, but it's still got the same basic principles behind it. And there's really nothing new under the sun. And that's what we're finding out. There's very few new innovations, and the Bitcoin is one of this generation's innovation.
I think it's important. It's good that you're thinking about testing it. I think even a lot of traders out there that probably don't feel that need right now for faster transactions and confidential transactions, even if they don't feel that need, it's good to start playing around with it and getting used to it, because I think a lot of us are expecting a larger bull market within the next couple of years, fueled by all of the money printing going on right now, and also kind of the recent halvening. And if that happens, we're going to start seeing transaction fees go crazy on the Bitcoin network again, and this time might be bigger. Last time we were seeing fees reach $30, $50. It could be 100 plus this time. There's been a lot of efficiency improvements on Bitcoin, but perhaps the next kind of wave of users is going to be even bigger than last time. If that happens, there aren't a whole lot of solutions available right now. So Lightning will not be able to handle that kind of demand. The custodial solutions haven't got a lot of traction right now and are obviously extremely risky. Liquid is not specifically a scaling solution. It is designed to make trading more efficient primarily, but it does create a lot more block space for transactions. If we do see that next wave, the traders that will be able to move their funds around at low cost will be the traders on Liquid. And people kind of scrambling to set up their trading setups when the price is going up means they'll be missing out on trading opportunities. So it's good to be prepared.
But I think the fundamentals, my fundamental view of Bitcoin is, it's not going to come from banking beyond bank. It's going to come from wealth producers. It's going to come from entrepreneurs. And there's really only two kinds of entrepreneurs, and there's those of us that have Bitcoin and those that don't. And the next big move is going to be most entrepreneurs do not. We saw this in the movement of Michael Saylor, and if you examine that, how they had to do took a lot of time and effort and months of preparation to move $250 million into Bitcoin. And everyone is faced with this. And as the smaller entrepreneurs, it's not as big of a problem, but so the large companies, it's going to be a large one. And this is going to just really make it much easier for these for people to make the transition into sound money, because it's good. I mean, you got this problem coming, and we all react to herd mentalities, and when everybody wants to get this, like a herd of cattle trying to get through one chute, and they're just not going to be, no matter what our technology is, we're not prepared for what can happen. Because we're set up, we've got 120 years now, over 100 years, 110 years of depreciating worldwide. We have basically a fiat tsunami coming, And no matter how much we anticipate it, we know it's coming. We haven't seen it yet. And it's going to present its head in ways, it's going to be a hard thing to get through. And this is the innovation this type of thinking, this type of innovation is going to be the innovation that's going to get us through that dark period. And that's great. I'm just so glad to see you guys doing this. And I mean, it's going to come on its own, but this is the right solution at the right time as far as I'm concerned. So off-chain, that's Bitcoin is Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin standard is we start thinking in Bitcoin, and we're going to start pricing in Bitcoin, and it's a standard. And the Bitcoin is not you can redeem Bitcoin, not just for Bitcoin, but every other good and service coming into the marketplace. That's what's going to make it liquid. That's what's going to make this convergence. It's going to take time, and we need to build those on and off ramps as best we can. And you know what, kind of let fiat solve its own problems. And that's what I see what you've done here. And you're solving a huge problem that's going on in the exchanges. It's a way that you have money on the exchanges without risking. Those of us that have taken large losses through exchange haircuts or hacks or bankruptcies or just closures, we understand that the exchange risk is huge, and that's part of what we teach in money management. So, and then the part that I don't get yet, that Juan's working on, and he's educating me, is, the security of your own Bitcoin. But this is one way to move Bitcoin around that looks like it's going to be very secure, and it's going to be much, it's going to be a lot cheaper when next time we have this crisis and these fees go way up. Liquid's going to be the solution. If you're not there and you don't get it, you're going to be missing out.
Yeah, I think this is very exciting. I find it very, very interesting. I appreciate you coming on, Neil, and telling us about it. I'm a lot more curious now than I was before, and I'll be definitely looking into it more. And I'm looking forward to more adoption of liquid deposits. I just checked Bitso to see if I could deposit liquid, and it doesn't look like it's not telling me about liquid. I don't know if I can deposit to a normal Bitcoin address. I'm guessing that's not the case.
I don't think Bitso. I don't think Bitso does, or at least I'm not aware if they do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
But yeah, so looking forward to more adoption. And I have no doubt that when the feeds go up, we'll see a lot more adoption of this and other different ways of scaling Bitcoin, because there's more than one path to get there.
Well, I don't think that they don't need to publicly do this.
They do, yeah. I mean, that's the point.
Liquid is going to be separate. It's off-chain. It's not Bitcoin, and it's going to be a different. You need to start thinking different. Let's get in this thing, and maybe in 30 days we'll have another one say, here's what we've done with liquid. Man. Because you know what, I think there's going to be a lot of cool stuff involved. I might be wrong, Neil, but I kind of have an idea how this works, but I don't want to say it till I get into it. And that's what Neil is telling us: get in there and start playing with it, and then we can teach people that follow us, and introduce. The learning curve starts here.
I mean, there's definitely a learning curve, and it's definitely new technology, and it's very interesting. But I'm definitely going to push back on this idea that it's not Bitcoin. I mean, some other guy was talking about like that Lightning is not Bitcoin. It is absolutely undeniably Bitcoin. It's using Bitcoin as a denomination. It's using on-chain Bitcoin to settle conflicts on the higher layer of consensus. It's using on-chain time locks. It's using on-chain multisig. It is 100% Bitcoin, and it is attached to the Bitcoin denomination and unit of account. To me, it is undeniably Bitcoin.
Yes.
The question is, what is the interface going to be like, right? Like you can actually, I'm going to show you when I get back. I'm going to show you. We're going to get you a Blockstream wallet. We're going to get you a Liquid wallet on your phone, and you're going to be able to move it around, and you'll see that it is not. It's like Bitcoin. It is Bitcoin. It's just going to be a slightly different deposit addresses. I'm assuming, but I expect it to be the same and probably easier to use, despite some of the kind of security trade-offs. So,
well, somebody, Gabriel Tar, he's asking, well, what about the miners? Well, my understanding that this Liquid is Bitcoin. They're not mining Bitcoin. These are already existing Bitcoins, so there's no mining element in this. You want to address that, Neil?
So the Liquid network started off empty. So when it kicked off, there was no Bitcoin there, and people gradually peg Bitcoin in. And instead of having miners and proof of work, they're replaced by the functionaries, the 15 functionaries, and they basically have these server units which generate the blocks. So they order the transactions. There's still a block space market, the same way there is in Bitcoin. So there is limited block space, and people have to pay fees to get in, but they're a lot lower than Bitcoin right now. And yeah, so
they will remain lower, guys. They're going to remain lower because it's only those that are familiar with the access that are going to be able to use it. And so I expect that the fees on, I mean, I'm guessing, because I haven't played with it yet, but I'm guessing that the fees using Liquid are going to be about 90% less than the fees on Bitcoin, particularly when the fees go up.
Right now, they're a lot less than 90% cheaper. Basically, you can put in the minimum transaction fee, and you'll get into the next block. So that's not a problem on Liquid right now. I don't think it's necessarily true that Liquid will always be cheaper than Bitcoin, because there are actual kind of like there is utility in using Liquid. Like you can get your transactions to the exchange faster. Faster has value, and then also confidentiality, like keeping your large transactions hidden from other users, that also has utility. So there is a possibility, like a scenario like multiple years from now when Liquid gains more adoption, where people are actually willing to pay more fees to get their transactions to complete faster on Liquid than on Bitcoin. But like that's conjecture. At the moment, it's certainly much
you'll have
cheaper.
Competition by then.
Yeah, there's that too. This is the key point about Liquid as well. Like it's built on Elements, which is completely open source. This is just like one implementation of an Elements federation. But like if Liquid succeeds, I think it's highly likely that we'll start to see other federations pop up with different sets of cryptocurrency companies, different sets of individuals running these side chains and federations. And like you might even see like big bank federations where they're like super like restrictive and like heavy on KYC and stuff like that. So
here's another question. Am I understanding correctly that the miners' incentive will decline due to Liquid? What's your opinion on that?
I think anytime that we move transactions off chain, we're taking transaction fees away from the miners. But if it's good for Bitcoin in the long term, like from a low time preference perspective, it's good for miners. Like, but like I'm sure miners would prefer all transactions occur on the main chain, but they can't control that. Like
No,
this is the market. People can choose to transact cheaper elsewhere if they want to.
And any good businessman knows that a smaller piece of a bigger pie is better business.
Yeah.
Am I right or what?
For sure. I think if every transaction had to happen on the main chain, like Bitcoin would still be really attractive, but there's a lot of kind of use cases where it would not be used. And it's better that people are using Bitcoin on Liquid than in a custodial solution where like everybody's using a Coinbase wallet, for instance, and just transferring around then updating a database. Now, that's highly risky, like from multiple perspectives. If Coinbase gets hacked or they do an inside job or they get like subpoenaed by the government or whatever, like there are multiple risk models that like can't protect you against that. Whereas with Liquid, like you've got a multi-sig. If one of the exchanges or two of the exchanges get targeted, your funds are still safe. You can withdraw the funds, you can peg out. You know that there's a one-to-one backing on the network, so it's a lot more secure for multiple different kind of hostile situations.
Well, I'm looking forward to this playing out. It's going to be very interesting.
You got a tough job, man. I don't envy you at all. Marketing, you got an uphill battle, but it's just going to be. I hope you're a patient man. I think you're going to do extremely well, but it's going to take a while. It does because there's going to be a learning curve on this.
Yeah, I like adoption.
If I'm actually old goat, you got to get it past me if you want everybody else to understand it, because I'm the guy that doesn't understand the back end. I get the economics. I have no problems with that end, but I got to take people's word on why Bitcoin is Bitcoin and why it's better than gold. And I trust you guys because there's enough of you out there that you can't all be lying.
Liquid's been going for 2 years, and like, I'll be honest, adoption in the early stages was slow, but it feels like we're kind of getting over the hump right now. A lot more assets getting issued on the network. There's like a good few assets in the pipeline right now that we're working with as we speak. And like more and more exchanges are integrating with it. So like we're creating this kind of like ecosystem. So I'm kind of confident that we're getting there. Also, I think like just using Tether as an example, initially it was just on Omni, and during the last bull market, 2017, like Omni started to break down. It couldn't handle the demand of Tether users, and very quickly all of the exchanges and users had to scramble onto another network, which was Ethereum, to start getting the transactions through at a decent transaction fee. Like they were pressured into that by all the demand, and now ERC20 is also starting to show its strains and its cracks. Like it's increasingly difficult for people to complete their transactions on ERC20.
Don't tell me you're going to be the demise of Ethereum. You're not telling me the long, the long-awaited crash of Ethereum is going to be touched off.
I'm not predicting that because
that'll be a great Bitcoin story.
Yeah, I've called the top on Ethereum way too many times now. I'm giving up on that. But the point is that I think we'll probably, as much as we'd like people to just adopt it right now and start using it, I think there's a high chance that once the fee pressure starts to increase and like these networks start to show their strain, we'll see a massive kind of scramble to adopt Liquid, not only for Bitcoin, but also for things like Tether and other stable coins and assets on there. So
that's fantastic.
That seems a likely scenario. Obviously, you've got to get into a bull market for that to happen. But
well, those stable coins aren't going to be stable for much longer, I'm afraid. So
that's
the biggest misnomer there's ever been. But I guess we have to accept it for now.
It's going to be a flat line down on this 45 degree. So let me ask you something that's, to take it out of Liquid itself and from another perspective. What is Blockstream's financial interest and profitability in the support of Liquid? Blockstream has raised something, above $100 million from different parties, from what I can tell, roughly speaking. I believe it's a Canadian company. Is that correct? And what's the interest here?
One thing that people kind of often mistake is that they think that we're going to get fees from the Liquid network. So when you're making a transaction on Liquid, you do pay a fee, and those fees do go to Blockstream. But we actually just spend those fees immediately on doing peg-ins and peg-outs, because there's fees to handle on the Bitcoin network. And like I say, like if we get into a high fee scenario, like those fees are going to become quite expensive. So we basically make zero money on those Liquid transaction fees.
Quick question to that. So do the fees move from the Federation to Blockstream servers, and then from Blockstream private keys, then they pay the fee to do the peg out? Or is it like when you withdraw, you're paying the Bitcoin fee basically?
So the mechanics of that, I'm actually not too sure. I'll have to get back to you on that. But essentially, the fees are center keys controlled by Blockstream, and then those fees are used to pay for the peg-ins and the peg-outs. Perhaps we're sending to top up the Federation wallet. I'm not sure on that one.
I went. Juan and I are going to do some homework on Liquid, and I'd like to have you back on the show in about 30 days. Does that sound like
that's
a winner?
Good.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to do that. But in terms of the business model, the idea is that we build up adoption on Liquid, and like there will be multiple business opportunities that present themselves on that. So one of the first examples is that we're launching a product. We've already launched a product called Liquid Securities. There's going to be a big update coming to that very shortly, like within a couple of weeks. Liquid Securities is a product built on top of the Liquid network, which allows businesses to issue their own security tokens on the Liquid network, and we charge for that. That's like fully, like explicitly, like there's a fee to maintain your asset on this platform, and that's just one example. There are multiple different ways that we can charge. Also, there's going to be like maintenance for members, so like technical support, stuff like that. We'll be charging for that eventually. Right now, it doesn't make sense because we're bootstrapping the network. But like, it doesn't mean that people are tied into a contract with us if they're a member. Like anybody can provide technical services and support for Liquid. It just would make sense to be using Blockstream because at the moment we're the people that understand it the best. But yeah, you can expect to slowly see more and more products launching on top of the Liquid network from Blockstream as adoption increases.
When you say security tokens, what do you mean by that? How would you distinguish what you mean by security token from what's being issued now on Ethereum?
So I think typically like if tokens or shitcoins being issued on Ethereum are considered utility tokens. So they're kind of self-contained within their own networks and they don't have any kind of collateral backing them up in the real world, whereas a security token has real world collateral backing it up. So like if you're like securitizing real estate, there's like an actual building there, which is represented partially by a token. And then these tokens are heavily regulated, typically in various different jurisdictions. So there needs to be controls. Liquid normally for like Liquid Bitcoin or Tether or something could be transferred to anybody with a Liquid wallet, but these security tokens can only be transferred to, for example, accredited investors or people within the US.
We had NX on here not long ago with Samson Mao and Jason Siebert?
Alan Silbert.
Alan Siebert. And of course, that was issued on Ethereum, but apparently they have a promise that they're going to be switching it over to Liquidity. So because they didn't want to wait to get the approval, which I get. So how will that change the nature of if they're able to do this and move their security token to Liquidity, what would be, I mean, I really don't understand the back end at all. So is it a rather simple thing or is it a very difficult thing to do?
So issuing a security is more difficult. So typically issuing an asset on Liquid, super simple. You set up a Liquid node, you punch in a few commands, set your parameters. Okay, I want this many tokens. I want to send it to you could do a multi-sig issuance, for instance. Set the parameters, set the amount of tokens, set the name, ticker, that kind of thing. Hit enter, and you've issued an asset, and that asset now exists on the Liquid network. You can send it around. Fine. But with security tokens, like I say, it's a bit more complex because you need to control who can own the asset. And the way that Ethereum does that is with these insanely complex smart contracts. Complexity is the enemy of security. Like a lot of these smart contracts go wrong sometimes, difficult to maintain. If the regulations change, it's hell trying to update these smart contracts. So the way Liquid handles it instead, or Liquid Securities handles it instead, is we use just 2 of 2 simple Bitcoin multi-sig. And so the user, the investor, holds one of the keys, so they still own the asset, but then the issuer also holds the second key. And if the owner wants to transfer the tokens, the issuer does a quick check on who the token's being transferred to, and then they approve the transaction with their second key. And that allows them to implement much more complex rules and update the rules based on the latest regulatory requirements or entering new jurisdictions, all in this way that is secured on the Bitcoin blockchain using 2 of 2 simple, well understood Bitcoin 2 of 2 multi-sig. And the system for controlling all of that is called Liquid Securities, and that's the product that we're offering. So INX have promised to use the service. It's difficult for them to change because they've already been approved by regulators on Ethereum. So I'd imagine that'll be a year or 2 away, at least. But there are multiple kind of businesses right now that are issuing security tokens, and also other regulated tokens that look a little bit like securities but aren't, that also require the same controls, and they're also using this Liquid Securities platform.
Have any of these been approved yet? I mean, one of the problems I see is that I think Ethereum, was basically acknowledged by the SEC, and Liquid, to my knowledge, hasn't been acknowledged as a platform to issue securities on yet.
Yeah, so the security token approval is it's hell. Hats off to people that are going through all of the legal stuff that needs to be done there to get them approved. Good luck to them. But yeah, there's still stuff to be done before things are approved and released on Liquid. I think like based on conversations that we're having with the business that we're working with, it shouldn't be too long. Like things are.
Well, I just fear that, the SEC, I don't trust the SEC as far as I can throw them. And so it doesn't surprise me that they would approve Ethereum, but then find, oh no, Liquidity, it's not a sound platform when it is. So I hope I'm wrong on that one. I really do. But, my mentor was E.C. Harwood, and he taught me that the three greatest swindles in history is number one, inflation. Number two is Social Security. And number three, believe it or not, is the Securities and Exchange Commission. So I don't think that, regulation saves anyone except maybe a few, elitists. So. And makes it difficult for everyone else. So, but I do hope that I think we've got a much sounder platform, and I think that maybe what you are offering could be one of the contributing factors to the eventual demise of Ethereum, because Ethereum just is unstable, and everybody knows it. We're just waiting for the day for it to no longer exist.
Ugly, could you point the microphone towards your face a little more? It's just a little quiet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. We have another question here. Blockstream Green Wallet has some of the security features as Neil described for Liquid. I think he's talking about the 2 of 2 sort of time lock kind of scheme. I think the biggest risk for Liquid is Blockstream to disappear. What happens if Blockstream for some reason goes down? What happens to the Liquid network and maybe some of those other services?
So, I mean, like I say, all of the hardware is based at the Liquid network members. So, and all of the governance structures are already set up. So we have the oversight board, for instance, would kick into action very quickly, start making some decisions. If Blockstream disappeared, the people don't disappear unless we've been hit by a meteorite. So all of the expertise still exists out there. So it would be very easy for the Federation to hire, for instance, Blockstream personnel to maintain certain things. Also, the Liquid network is based on Elements, and Elements is based on Bitcoin. So from a software and coding perspective, it looks just like Bitcoin. So if you've got anybody that's a developer that's familiar with Bitcoin and blockchain, they're going to be able to get up to speed on Liquid very quickly. We also have some very extensive technical documents on docs.blockstream.com. So it would be possible for people to start maintaining these things themselves. The HSMs, the functionaries, might be a little bit more challenging because a lot of that is pretty technical and not like Bitcoin. But like I say, the expertise would still exist. And if there was if the Liquid network is successful and there's demand there, there's going to be where there's a will, there's a way, and the market will work it out.
Well, for being a non-technical guy, you are pretty good at your technical stuff. So these guys that are the developers on Bitcoin, they must speak a whole new language that none of us comprehend, because you did a good job. This stuff's hard to understand, guys.
This is what working at Blockstream for 2 years does to you. It's a challenging place to work at.
So, but that's the whole job, and that's part of hopefully what part of my job is to try and make things. If you can't get it by me, it's not going to get by the average Joe, and so that's the challenge that lies ahead.
This was the driver for launching Aqua. So Blockstream Green is a great wallet, but it kind of has this expectation that somebody's familiar with Bitcoin already, at least at the moment. And so Aqua was driven by this need to appeal to the everyman, anybody that doesn't really want to get into how does Liquid work and setting up multi-sig and stuff like that. If you really just want to get your assets, put it on your wallet, send it to an exchange, just use Aqua, and that'll sort you out.
Okay. Excellent. All right. Anything else, Juan?
No, I think that's all I got. Thank you for coming on, Neil. That was an excellent show. I hope people enjoy it. I'm already getting some good feedback from it. I think this is maybe the most let's say in-depth podcast I've seen on Liquid. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but I really appreciate it, man. It's been a good show.
No, I'm pleased you had me on. It's been good.
Excellent.
Well, you got to make a fool of yourself if you come on
That's
my
right.
show. I don't know if you know what I do, but I teach that we hodl first. And of course, you know what that is. And then we save, and that's a bastardized version of savvy. And that means that as you hodl, your wealth is going to increase. So you want to reward yourself and your family. And so you upgrade your computer. You might buy a new car or put that rec room on your house. And then the last thing we do is we build it. And you can build in a lot of different ways. Now, Neil, he's building on the Liquid network. I'm building by I started Ugly Old Goat. But you might just have a car wash. You might be a carpenter. You might be a plumber. You might be a web designer. It doesn't matter what your vocation is. You just want to be the very best at it. And so that's what we do. We want to build, and then but we put ourselves on the Bitcoin standard. So the way I teach, and we kind of end this way, I go build a, save. Whoa, it's hard to do that, right? It's hold a. Hodl. I'm getting old, guys. Hodl. Save. Build a. Sound money. All right, so we can do this. What we need to do is get all of these superstars in Bitcoin to do this dance and make a little compilation of them making a fool of themselves. What do you think about that?
We're getting them one at a time, Ugly.
All right, let's go, Neil. Here we go. Ready?
Okay, let's do it.
Hodl. Save. Build a. Sound money. All right. Thank you for coming on. Next time we expect you to get up and do a better dance.
Okay. Looking forward to it.
All right. We'll see you. Thanks for coming on. It was a great show.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Take care, man.
Bye-bye.
Catch you next time.
You got to push the red button, Ugly. The big red button.
All right. And pro, are we all still on? No. Hey, Neil, thanks for coming on.
Do you want me to go? I wasn't sure whether you want to wrap up or.
Yeah, I don't have host power, so unfortunately I can't push the button. But
okay.
Leave meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Catch you guys later.
Take care, man.
Hey, thanks for coming on. It was great.
Bye.
Do it again.
We'll stay in touch.
Bye-bye.